ask that we keep in our hearts maybe some lessons that we learned from that connection topic, and we're going to bring that back when we go to the end of our session. But so now I would like to welcome Erika to kick us off.
Thank you, Cristy. Hi everyone, buenos dias, good morning. I'm glad you're able to make it here with us. It was really nice to look out and see all of you connecting. So I'm happy just to see you all like smiling and just the room filling with a lot of, sound. I just want to recognize that we're on these like beautiful lands. I've just been looking around, and so I have a lot of gratitude for being here. And also I just want to acknowledge the Marshall Fire that happened in 2021 in December, not so far from here. And so, I've just been thinking about the community and what the recovery has looked like for the Marshall community. My name is Erika Ledesma. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the co-founder and executive director of Coalición Fortaleza, and we're a nonprofit that came out of the Almeda fires of 2020. And so and I've also been part of the network for the past 3 years. I joined in 2021, and it's given me a lot of support in carrying this disaster work in my own community. The Almeda fire happened in Ashland, Talent, Phoenix, Medford. It was our community in Jackson County was the one that was most severe hit in September 8th of 2020. We lost about 2,900 structures. Of those, 19 were manufactured homes. And so those are still the communities that are having the hard time recovering 4 years after the fire. And so I just want to share a little bit about that, little facts about the fire. It used to be hard for me to talk about it because I was born and raised in that area, so a lot of my own community and family members were impacted. So I was called to do this work in my community. So for me, like transformative resilience is understanding that we can't go back to the way things were, is changing the systems that allow our community to really be able to recover and thrive. I want to do a little bit of storytelling because I think the focus of this conference has been stories we tell. And the importance of stories is that they propel us to take action, right? We can't just listen to the stories and just listen, right? Like we need to take action on what our communities are asking of us. And so on September 8th, that fire went through in like about 8 hours. It had destroyed our communities. And in October of 2020, we found ourselves in, I also want to say this was in the middle of the pandemic. So this was like September 2020. We were still adjusting to also like the pandemic and like a new world, right? And we were with community members in a high school gym, and it was like about 70 community members, and we were all in a circle. And we remember we were just there in grief. People were crying. We were trying to figure out what are the solutions moving forward. And I remember one of our elders like really stood up, and he's like, well, why don't we buy one of the manufactured home parks? He stood up, and then people were like, oh yeah, like why don't we buy one of the parks back and restore it? And another person's like, well, how much money is in the room? Someone pulled out a calculator, and they're like, who got FEMA money? Who got insurance money? Who got this? And we started to calculate how much would it cost for us to really purchase this? And in that moment, I looked to my friend, I'm like, our people are talking about, I didn't even know the word resident-owned community, but cooperatives. They're talking about this model of housing, about owning property, restoring their own neighborhoods. They knew we have the construction workers, the landscapers, we have all the people that we need in our communities to be able to rebuild these communities. And so from that meeting, we Googled and we found a development organization that does resident-owned community housing. They convert manufactured homes. And so we called them, and then surely a week after we were on Zoom with them and other community leaders, and we're like, this happened in our community, could you come down and help us restore these manufactured home parks? And surely 4 years later, Talent Mobile Estates will be the first resident-owned community in Jackson County that will recover from the wildfires of 2020. And so that's just a big victory, you know, for people to come back and restore that home ownership, restore that sense of dignity, you know, that was lost. And part of it is also like, how do we restore these solidarity economies that really have allowed our communities to really thrive? Because there's this stigma around manufactured home parks, but people have been living here for over 30 years. You know, they had their babysitter, they had all these networks that they needed to thrive, you know? And so part of us in this rebuilding process is we're not just trying to rebuild housing, we're trying to restore community. We're trying to restore these social economies so that way our people can really thrive. So when I think about like resiliency and disaster recovery is really figuring out new solutions that really work for our communities, because every community is different. And part of this is the pictures, the second photograph, you'll see the faces of our community members who will be living at Talent Mobile Estates, and they've been part of the process. They've been working with the architects, they've been designing their community spaces, and you know what we've been moving is no solutions about us without us. Like we need to make sure that we are creating the solutions for our people. So I don't know how. Okay. And so that's been one of our strategies is in this recovery is authentic leadership and representation, and not just saying that we need this. It's like, no, we need to start creating these spaces because our community knows what we need. And it hasn't been easy, you know, like having these conversations and educating, and but a way that we've been doing it too is having interpreters. Town Mobile Estates wasn't just like Latino Spanish speakers, you know, we had low income seniors on fixed income, and so we have interpretation. Like all of our community engagements have been bilingual. We've been having these conversations together. We don't separate between Spanish speakers and English because these conversations need to happen together. This visioning for their neighborhoods need to happen together. You know, we have childcare to make it accessible. We serve a meal, we eat together. We provide a stipend for participants because we also know people are giving their time, and it's valuable. And we also had some mental health counselors be able to show up because we know that it's really hard having these conversations, and sometimes things come up and we want to be able to take care of our community. And so those are some of the practices that we've been done in our community engagement to make it accessible and to take care of like the well-being of our community. And so, yeah, on, when is it? The park will be complete September. So imagine 4 years after the fire that people get to do a walkthrough in a couple weeks and look at their unit. You know, people have been waiting for so long. So we're finally excited that this is something tangible now, right? People get to celebrate. And the recovery doesn't stop there. There's so much more work to do. And another innovative thing that we've done is Hacienda CDC with Port of Portland did like a pilot program with mass timber. And so they built these mas casitas. Talent Mobile Estates received 2 of them. And so those are really efficient, but they're also fire resistant. And so we're also in the state of Oregon trying to figure out how do we address the housing crisis, but build more resilient, knowing that there's going to be another wildfire, that there are going to be more disasters that our communities are going to, you know, so those are other things that I wanted just to highlight are the mas casitas is another way that we're kind of figuring out, like as a community, you know, how can we bring these innovative things to address like our housing needs in the community. And so I'm really happy to be here with the network and to continue advocating for our communities, you know, because it's a long journey, like recovery, even after people get housed, like people are still having to rebuild their lives and rebuild their dignity, and so it is a, you know, it takes a generation. It's going to take a generation. So we need to be gentle with our communities and provide more space for healing and joy. So thank you so much, and I'll pass it to my colleague Jamila. I wanted to do an activity because we're trying to do more movement, but also we wanted to know who's in the room. So this activity is going to require for you all to stand up, not right now, but I'm going to ask a couple questions. Who wants to stand up if you're a student in the room? Woo! Hand of applause for us. Stand up if you or your community is recovering from a disaster. Hand of applause. Stand up if you are working in disaster recovery. Wow, look around. Hand of applause. And then stand up if you identify as a person of color. Look around. Thank you all for being here, for the work that you're doing in your communities. Just sending you a lot of love and prayer.
Thank you. Thank you, Erica, so much for that. Good morning. My name is Jamila Wilson. I work with United Way of Columbia-Willamette in Portland, Oregon. And I am I like to identify my work as a steward of the Disaster Resilience Learning Network. So I get to work with amazing leaders of color from across the state of Oregon who have and are working in disaster resilience. Some of our members, we have about 22 members currently, 22 member organizations, and about 35 representatives from these various organizations represented in the network. And a number of our members and organizations weren't involved in climate change or disaster resilience prior to their experience with the wildfires. And so they were thrust into a world that was very unknown, but yet they were able to tap into transferable skills that they have sort of mastered and have competencies in to be able to navigate the space of disaster resilience and emergency management and all the lingo and acronyms that we have come to know and either love or hate. But we brought these organizations together under the understanding that healing and empowerment must be at the foundation of our engagement, that we are powerful together. And then what I want to sort of highlight this afternoon, I'm rushing our day already. This morning, because of course I am not up at this time of the day, and really it's 7 something in Portland, so my body is still adjusting. But I want to share 3 sort of components or 3 tenets that we really base our work around together. And it's trust, community, and self-efficacy. So trust is something that requires relationships. Trust comes out of relationships. And trust also comes out of managing conflict and difficulty. So it's, I don't think any of us are just, and maybe some are, but a lot of times we build trust through challenges or conflict. And being able to understand or recognize that conflict is a normal aspect of the human experience. And oftentimes we seek to dismiss it or shy away from it, but it is what actually helps to build a part of our resilience. And so one of the pieces that we like to really hone in on is relationship building. So as Cristy demonstrated in our opening with storytelling, building connections with people, recognizing that our similarities are far greater than our differences. A way that we do this is we utilize the skill of storytelling. And I know that we spend a lot of time this week talking about the stories that we tell, the stories that bring us together. But this is a skill. And so we've recognized the importance of that and have brought in resources and training to support our members in building that skill of storytelling. And one of the things that I experienced, because I'll be honest, prior to being a part of the network and working in the nonprofit space for the last 20 years, I had a negative experience with storytelling. Oftentimes, particularly for people of color, we're used as a way of this may not be a common term, but it's a term that I'm very familiar with, poverty pimping. The organizations will use the story of low income or people of color to help bring resources into their spaces. And so they become exploitive. And so it's really challenging. So I was challenged by that idea of storytelling. But we, when we were taken through the process of the trainings and the workshops around storytelling, I experienced sort of an epiphany that in storytelling you get to connect with someone who on surface appears different or that comes from a different community. In one instance, and of course a lot of our work, because of the pandemic, because we went into a virtual world over the last 4 years, a lot of our work has been virtual. But I remember one time we were led by a facilitator, Tekka Thompson, with a Hearth, that is out of Southern Oregon, in Ashland, I believe, Ashland, Oregon. That's the organization that we partner with to support our skill building and storytelling. And she gave us a story prompt, and there was a moment where a woman shared her experience, and then another participant had an emotional reaction to it and said, that is my story too. And again, on the surface, it's like, where would we ever find, that connecting point, that similarity? And it is in our stories. And I've appreciated the indigenous wisdom we've received this week. I think it was Brandy who had shared that we are now responsible with the stories that we have been given to do something with it, not just to hold it or to store it away or even suppress it, but we are to now we're sort of stewards of these stories and connecting our experiences together, and those are so important. So again, trust is where is important, but it is through relationships and relationships that get challenged and holding space for those challenges and being finding comfort in the uncomfortable. Because the other thing is, it's impermanent. As we all learn and know through our experiences, change is inevitable. And the desire is to be able to change and grow towards good. And so this is some of the things that we really emphasize within the network. And the second piece I want to focus on is community, is building community. And community is not homogenous. It's not homogenous at all. It is really built on the diversity of thought, of education, of social economic, of religion. And that is what our network represents. Like, we are quite diverse. We have a strong presence of Latino, Asian, African American, Pacific Islanders, Native people as well. And we share our commonalities, our similarities, but also the uniqueness of each of those cultures are then also sort of woven into the experience. I think about a good cup of gumbo. It has all types of flavors in it, and you know when something is missing because it's not the same. And so, so it's so valuable that when we think about community, it's not so much about, that experience that we all are sharing, or that homogeny. It's about bringing in the flavor of people, of culture, and how valuable those things can be to our long-term recovery and to our thriving. And then I just want to end with the idea of self-efficacy. And again, there were several presenters this week that spoke to self-efficacy. And the way that I've experienced and interpreted self-efficacy and used it in my work, particularly around leadership development, is this is the building of confidence. And confidence comes through doing hard things. And so we know, even prior to the disaster, we know that our members and the families and the communities that they serve have experienced hard things. We have families who are migrant workers, who are immigrants, who've had to engage in very challenging circumstances to get into to create a better life and quality of life for their families. So we've done those hard things. It's about bringing that to the table and using that as our strength as opposed to a deficit. And in doing hard things, we're also improving our brain capacity and gray matter, because the brain loves hard things. But you know, the other, so there's like 4 components of self-efficacy. It's the mastery piece of being able to do something well, and that growth mindset aspect is really woven into that as well. And then it's observing others who do hard things and are successful. So this is where representation is crucial. We have to see ourselves in folks who are doing the hard things and the hard work. And then the third piece is vicarious experiences, or rather having support and encouragement from others. And the fourth is managing our stress. So I know we have less than a minute, and so I want to give us the opportunity to experience how powerful our bodies and our breath is in a very intentional way. So please bear with me. I'm going to take a little bit of time finding a comfortable seat, letting your hands rest comfortably either on your knees or the chair or the table in front of you. And the eyes can be soft and closed, or you can find a soft gaze to rest your eyes upon. And I want us to intentionally experience the breath. So notice as the inhale enters in through your nose, and observe how the body receives through the belly, expanding like a balloon blowing up with air. And as you exhale, be very intentional in pressing the belly button back and into the body as the breath exits the body. Again, feel, notice, observe the inhale expanding, and the exhale as the body releases and letting go. And notice the trust that exists within yourself that that inhale will return. And exhale, release, and let it go. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamila. I feel like that prepared me for my next one and grounded me. Good morning, everyone. My name is Carina Guzman. My pronouns are she, her. And I am here I'm a community engagement coordinator with the Oregon Health Authority of the Public Health Division. And one of my roles and one of the things that my team does is that we manage a public health equity grant that funds 196 community-based organizations across the state of Oregon for public health efforts. So some of those topics that folks are being funded for is, I lost my list right here. Okay, climate and health, emergency preparedness. Other ones include communicable disease prevention, commercial tobacco prevention, and also adolescent and school health. So one of the things about our grant is that our team emerged from COVID-19. There was a big need within community for funds to go directly to community that were responding to the needs and the emergencies happening. Community tends to go to where they trust first, and that is community-based organizations. And we had a responsibility to give those funds directly to community. The community engagement team, which I'm part of, emerged from that work. And through that process, we got to connect and build relationships with community-based organizations that are doing incredible work around the state of Oregon in so many different areas. Folks might be working directly with youth, but they're also helping other generations. They're also helping other community members. They're also serving elders. So through this work, the Public Health Equity Grant came about. And we opened our grant proposal, grant application, and folks applied. And now we are funding 196, which you get to see the map of everyone that is funded. And this grant, the heart of this grant, in my opinion, is to center and listen to communities. Public health needs to do better at engaging communities and listen to what community needs. I think historically, there has been a lot of directly state telling communities what they need, but this has been a very good opportunity for us to shift that model and really center community and start those conversations of how can we envision together, how can we collaborate together of what this public health system looks like, of how we can rehumanize this work so we're actually building relationships and we're centering community. Cristy, if you can move to the next slide. Thank you. So I want to highlight this slide. As part of our work, we like to collaborate together with communities, and this came about from a kickoff event that we have with community-based organizations with this grant. And one of the questions that we ask is, I can't read very well, what impact do you want your work to? That's right. What impact do you want your work to have 7 generations from now? And this is what community came up with. Connected communities. They also talked about disrupting power injustices. They talked about humanizing. They talked about focusing on intersectionality, help people walk to one door, also solidify support and mentors. So as part of this grant, I think one of the very innovative things that we're doing is how we are engaging with community. And one of the important things in this work that we've learned is that it's not only how we are working directly with folks and providing the funds for folks, but also how is our internal culture within our team. Because just as how we are within ourselves and within our team, that is going to be reflected with the community that we work with, and that is going to be felt. Our team, and I'm so grateful that we've had incredible leadership that has really put resources and time, so we create a culture of care within our own team, and that there is space for folks to hold hardship, to hold complexities, working with a bureaucratic system and also within the different systemic things that exist in this world is very challenging, but also is the system that we're working under. So how are we also creating a culture where we can sit with each other, sit with the hardship, bring community feedback, bring community into the conversation? What would make this better, and how can we improve in the future? And I think since COVID-19, since those funds, we've learned a lot alongside with community. We've made many mistakes. We've also repaired those mistakes, and we've apologized, and we've been transparent, honest with our communications that we are not perfect. We work under a system that was not set up to support the folks that most need it. And therefore, we also have a responsibility to show up with transparency and repair. So I think if you move to the next slide. Thank you. So this is a picture of our team. And this was back in an event that we had in person after the pandemic. Well, because our work started in the pandemic, we couldn't meet in person. So all the work that we did was on Zoom or going to community events that was just outdoors or with masks. And this was the first event that we had where community-based organizations came together. We all came to Portland, And we had a celebration and a conference. And this is the team that helped it put together. One of the very unique things about our team is that we're also community members, and we represent the communities that we work with. And that has made it very unique, and I think has been very transformative within the Public Health Division and in the work that is happening in the state of Oregon. So I think, so with that, I want to invite you all to a little activity. And if you could take a second to just look around, maybe lock eyes with someone, give a smile, make a connection to someone, say good morning with your eyes. And I want to invite you to think about two things as you're sitting wherever you are. And the first one is, think about a person or a connection in your life that has brought you to where you are right now. And you don't have to focus first on your professional life. I know that's very easy to go, my career, who helped me get to where I am in my career? Just as yourself, as a human, the values that you hold, who you are. So sit with that for a second. And then I also want you to think about, in the past 3 or 4 days, or maybe 5 days that you've been here, think about an element or something in the beautiful landscape that we are surrounded that you have connected with or has maybe stayed with you. So this could be, maybe this is your first time in Colorado and you got to see the mountains and you were driving here and you're like, whoa. Or maybe as you're walking into this building, you heard the birds and you're like, okay, I'm rushing in, beautiful birds rushing in. Maybe it was the heat one day. Maybe it was the water that you drank that felt very different from whatever state you come from. So take a second to reflect of what element of what in the surrounding has stayed with you or you've noticed. And now I want to invite some of you to share, if you would like, raise your hand and share, maybe answer both or maybe answer one of them. And it could be just 3 of you if you want.
Yes, I would like to answer the second question. I'm Lee from West Texas A&M University. One thing I find to be very impressive here in Colorado is the large number of apartment complexes around this area. There are not many of them in Texas Panhandle. I like them, and I feel like they are good to build communities, especially to build community resilience. It's kind of an infrastructure support to build community resilience. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to share?
Two things. One, just the natural plants when there's any not landscape cultivated area, the natural plants that come up and the diversity of them, colors, flowers, etc. And then also appreciated the purple plant irrigation, the reuse. Don't want to call it wastewater, but you know what it is. Anyway, appreciate that they're doing it where it is landscape, that they're being conscious of their water usage.
Thank you. And then we see a person right here.
Hey y'all, Alex Sheeher with United Way of Greater Nashville. When you asked that first question, I just had a slideshow of so many amazing friends that I've had over the course of my life who have spoken into my life and seen me and met me where I was. So that brought up a lot of gratitude that I'm thankful for. And with the space, this land that we're on, I was walking to the gas station kind of a mile down the road, and just walking by and getting this like lavender scent from the plants along the sidewalk, and just some of the like herbaceous scents around that are very beautiful and different from Tennessee. And then also being around mountains reminds me of living in Appalachia in middle school and high school. And even though the Rockies are very different than the Appalachian Mountains, it feels very familiar. It feels like family to see another mountain range. And this is my first time in Colorado, so it's been wonderful.
Thank you so much, all, for sharing.
We go into Q&A that the Disaster Resilience Learning Network, it's more than just bringing people together and embodying these values, but we have infrastructure, we have intention in how this network sustains and supports our members. That is through evaluation and feedback loops. That is through meaningful funding dedicated to our network members, and so many ways, shape, and forms. We recently, so I wanted to present our annual report for our 2023 grant projects that we've been working on throughout the year. And so, and I was waiting on one person to just send me some photos. So I actually just finished this yesterday. So it's not on the website, but you can look at the Canva link. And if there are spelling mistakes, this is draft form, y'all. So
She's been working hard on it, so please scan and see the beautiful report.
Yes, look at the strengths, not the faults, because I'll look at them later. So if anyone has questions, I think we have time for Q&A. The gentleman in the patch shirt.
Good morning. Thank you. My name's Hunter Merritt with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and I teach at California State University, Sacramento. And not so much a question, but a comment and a celebration, and it is to see how much intention you put toward having an activity at each of your moments in sharing your story. And I'm a bit emotional about it because just as you were asking for community and connection, I think the thing that I feel being here is that it's connected two worlds for me, and that is experiential learning and the community building that's taking place around disasters. So I just want to celebrate that, and if you have knowledge to share about how you came to naturally be an experiential educator like you have been, I'm glad to hear it, but just wanted to say thank you.
Jamila's our expert.
Not at all. My expertise comes from community, and that's the thing is that I was trained and raised in the understanding that iron sharpens iron. And it may sound, a little harsh, but it's also, there's love and care and accountability, and also bringing our authentic selves to the table. So often we have been sort of trained to separate our personal and our professional, and there is some value in that, but I do think that we have experienced a transformational situation in the last 4 years, that we have to be really, really honest about what we've experienced on a global level. This was not just a regional, state, city, country. This was a global experience we have just come out of, and that ultimately we're still in the middle of. And so we have to be respectful of that, and that we are different, we are changed. And this also allows us to be our better selves as well. And so the more that we can hold space for that, again, holding space for discomfort is not something we are ultimately trained or even encouraged towards, but it is something that will give, we have a greater return on that investment when we open ourselves up to discomfort, because it is impermanent, it is temporary, and it gives us a time to expand our comfort zone. And so that's, I think, that experiential learning that you speak of is really about bringing our authentic selves. Because to a point that Erica made about when the community assessed what they had it. They were all they had, and it was more than enough. And that's the other piece that we want to understand, especially where there is the desire to do good in communities and particularly supporting and serving low-income or vulnerable or communities of color, there's a preconceived idea that we're coming in to save or there's a deficit, and there's not. There's absolutely not a deficit from within those communities and within those neighborhoods. It's just a way of sort of bringing out and providing a space for people to assess their skills, their assets, and know that together they are stronger, and together we are stronger. And so that's, I think, what's really valuable and important, and just holding space for that authentic gifts that we have to share with the world.
Thank you, Jamila. And I'll also say, if anyone wants any tip sheets or just practical one-on-ones for how to hold or facilitate a trauma-informed meeting or workspace, trauma-informed.org again, trauma-informedoregon.org, I should say. We have a resource library list with so many different resources from multiple practitioners as well as our own staff who have some little quick tip sheets for one-on-one stuff like that. Any other questions? I have one friend over here.
Hey, good morning. My name is Lily Montes. I'm from the city of Philadelphia. We're working on a number of place-based, community-led, community-driven resilience plans, projects. And one of the challenges that we face a lot is that you're not going to be everything to everyone, right? And community, like you said, is not homogenous, and not everybody wants the same thing. So we've been working really hard to provide as many options as possible. But I was hoping you could speak maybe a little bit to experiences that you've had in sort of navigating that space of trying to move forward, and not always in the same direction for everyone, but trying to move forward. And yeah, if you could share experiences.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and our community engagement has been, a little bit challenging, to navigate like hard conversations because everyone's so different, and also like multiple experiences. I'm trying to think if there's like an example that I'm thinking of right now. I guess I'll share an example. So our organization is Latinx and Indigenous led, especially by women. And so this project, has been led by us, and I think sometimes we do center those people who are most vulnerable or have been impacted, but because Talent Global is also a diverse community, I remember someone calling me and they're like, well, we're not all Latinos, and it's like, how come you're only uplifting your culture? Like, how come, he's like, you invited me to an event, but the flyer was in Spanish, and it's like, that's not accessible to me. And it didn't come directly to me, it came to a partner that they had complained to about our organization leading this housing project. And she called me, she's like, hey, I'm letting you know about this resident, and this is the concern that she brought forward. And in that moment, I was just like, I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit with that, and I sat with it, and then I called her, and then I was like, hi, like, I'm from Coalición Fortaleza, I wanted to check in with you. I heard like what you're feeling, and I just want to understand a little bit more. And we just had like this really fruitful conversation, and I let her know a little bit about like our history and like starting this work, and just, how historically like our communities have never had spaces like to be able to be seen and celebrated. And then it just ended, I was like, oh, I totally understand. And then she's like, well, at the end of it, she was like, is there space for us to also like participate? Like, is it tokenizing? And then I was like, no, like, we want to invite everyone, and you should have gotten an English flyer. It's like these events, obviously they focus specifically on like our culture, but also like everyone's welcome to come and participate, and learn together. So I don't know if that's an example, but it is like, I think people are always going to, always want their own needs being met, but it's like just like holding space for that, and at the end of it, just knowing that we all kind of mean good. And I don't know, maybe someone want to share more. I think that was just an example that came to me of thinking like working through with community and different needs.
Thank you. And I also want to say, just applauding you, Erica, because I think that having those hard conversations and repairing and reaching out, especially when someone has a grievance, is really hard. So I just want to honor what you said about holding space for that discomfort and for that moment where someone didn't feel welcome and included as a person. So I think time for one more question, if there is one. Person in the red, because
Thank you so much for each of you in presenting your portion of the overall perspective here. What other organizations like Oregon's Disaster Resilience Learning Network exist in the U.S., or specifically on the Pacific Coast, to be honest? And do they come by other names, or is this a name is this a name that others have also adopted? They do exist.
Yes, so the Disaster Resilience Learning Network, it is unique to this space. As we shared, it birthed out of the 2020 wildfires. But networks are becoming far more common and frequent. And so there is, I think, even last year, there was a presenter from the Black Resilience Network, I believe. So it's really really like-minded people coming together and noticing that we're going to save ourselves. I think that has also kind of grown, a theme that's grown out of this conference as well. I even recall the administrator on Monday speaking to the fact that it will be the neighbors that are your first responders. And so how can we start coordinating that? And that's ultimately what this is. It's this, we're sort of taking a large swath of land, the state of Oregon, to connect neighbors to neighbors. So we began initially virtually, but now we are sort of moving into a space of regional engagement, bringing more in-person activities together for our members to build those relationships, and then eventually starting to expand the leadership. So right now the network is, again, stewarded by United Way, Trauma Informed Oregon, and Oregon Health Authority. We're also looking to expand that leadership towards our members so that the network does not belong to one organization. It belongs to all of us. And so we're still building what that infrastructure looks like. But I do think that if there is a desire and an interest of creating an infrastructure to build these types of relationships, that the opportunity is there, and that there are a number of networks that are growing. I know in the last year or two we've been introduced to at least 5. There's fire resilience networks. There's oh my gosh, there's so many out there right now. So yes, this is a great opportunity for us to innovate and build those relationships.
Yes, and we can talk more about that one-on-one because we're out of time. As we end, I just wanted to call out that we have 2 network members here as well who are able to present with us. To put them on the spot, we have Erica from Familias en Acción. And we have Kiana with her lovely husband who's been taking photos from Lily Island. Oh, is Heidi here? Where's Heidi? Heidi! And Heidi in the back is a beautiful researcher who has supported our network in so many ways, shapes, and forms, so an honorary general network. And that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for being here and for participating. A beautiful, beautiful audience here today, so we just want to send love and appreciation to y'all. And if you want to chat more, come hang out with us. Thank you.